And then my final question is, what's the status on borehole 3? You did 1 and 2 and you did your technical work, but borehole 3's kind of been quiet. I guess that's the last question that I had coming out of this presentation is what's the status? What are we doing with, what are you guys doing with borehole 3?
We spent the first 6 months of last year trying to design a way to get up to borehole 3 to do the drilling that was required in order to be able to qualify the vertical shaft. Because of safety concerns with the access of that from the step toe side on the slope, it's a 40-degree slope to get up there. The equipment and the drill rig and the contractor that we had determined that it was an unsafe condition. We looked at doing it by helicopter and helicoptering everything in. That would have ended up with 4 to 6 helicopter trips per day in order to be able to move equipment and supplies in and the personnel. At the end of the day, we decided and determined that kind of access to gain the information that would be marginally an improvement to the geotechnical information for the mountain was not worth the safety risk. At some point in the future, maybe it'll be after the engineering procurement and contractor is selected, that they will come in and they will make the decision that they need to have that geotechnical borehole done, and there will be permits that will be required through the BLM, and there will be made some accommodation for being able to get up there to do that. But as it stands right now, the company decided that it was not a safe thing to do as a rush up as a part of a 6-week period of time in the fall of last year.
All right. And then the baseline studies, Bill kind of alluded to it, but there's not, in your final license application, there's not really a whole lot of baseline studies, you know, that I mean, there are some in there. There's the socially economical and those things, and I know the cultural is restricted, but just to clarify, the baseline studies you've done thus far are in the FLA.
That's correct. There are some additional studies that will be completed, as I mentioned, that will further expand on some of the work that we've done. For instance, I mentioned that we still got to do a ground truth on the step toe access road. That ground truth in and of itself will further identify any potential cultural impacts that we have to avoid. There will also be some biological surveys that we done as a part of surveying for veg. Those kinds of things will be required both during the time frame as a part of finalizing the design and prior to construction. That's one thing that I think that gets lost on a lot of people, is that even though we do all of these studies, and even though we go out and qualify the areas for the work that needs to be done, that prior to actually initiating construction in specific areas, we will be sending out biologists and botanists that will be further surveying immediately prior to the construction activities taking place. Part of our commitment in our mitigation plans that are expressed in the final license application is that if there are certain species of concern that occur both vegetation and wildlife, we will mitigate for that by either transplanting or by removing and allowing for those to be cultured somewhere else. All of those kinds of things will be taking place immediately prior to construction. So even though we go out and do these things now, there will be a time in which we do it again. We'll be doing it again prior to the start of disturbing activities.
Is there any, is there any other questions from anybody on the phone? I'll ask Jeremy, do you have any questions you want to ask at this time?
Chairman, the committee, I think, covered a lot of mine. I did have one great, and this has come up now tonight, and it also came up at the commission meeting, and that's the issue of the access road on the Duck Creek side. And obviously that's important for the folks in the county and has wildlife connotations and everything else. So I'm trying to clearly understand where you guys are coming from in the response to comments, and also in the FERC notice that came out on cooperating agencies requesting additional studies, when it says, and I'm just going to read it because I've got like 3 different questions from folks in the county on this. but it states a new alternative upper reservoir access road is being considered that would utilize an approximately 3.5-mile long permanent dual-lane paved roadway that would connect the proposed upper reservoir location to White Pine County Road 29 and D 486 through the Duck Creek Range and across Duck Creek. So where people are getting confused is they hear we're not going to improve the road and we're only going to use it for emergency access. But when they start looking in the documents and they see we're going to have a paved, improved road, that's completely opposite of where the county's wanting to go. So I just wanted to take this chance to clarify it because it's not quite reconnoitering with me either.
Jeremy, I appreciate that, and I will go back and check on that to make sure that it is clarified. If there needs to be a clarification, we'll make that clarification. The intent was to only use that for emergency access.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring it up in the meeting, so if you all get a response here that says, hey, the county's not going to support this project if it includes a paved road in the Duck Creek Basin, you know where that's coming from, because what's on paper is not completely matching with what we've discussed. I think what we've discussed is a much more palatable option for the county. I just want to make sure what's on paper is matching that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Is there any other questions for Greg?
The only thing I wanted to add, Chairman, is that there has been a document prepared with regard to water permits and water rights that is a reflection of both the current legal understanding for water rights within Steptoe Basin and the state engineer that has been prepared for the county commission. And I'm thinking that it would be a good idea to provide that to the Natural Resources Advisory Committee so that you have that information at your fingertips. And so I will be sending that over to the county clerk so she can distribute that.
Thank you. If there's no further comments for Greg, we can move on down to item 4. Action, the committee will review the Nevada Division of Water Resources.
This has been a Georgetown production. George Chachis reporting.